Hello, everyone. It's DJ here with another Monday Motivation. I hope your week has started out great. You know, when we pray to God, we often expect that there's going to be an answer that follows that prayer. Usually, that answer comes in the form of yes and no, but the most challenging answer that we get is wait. How could a all-knowing God, all-powerful God, have wait be an answer to our prayers? But that's often what we face. This morning, let's break down why waiting might actually be the best answer that God gives us. Let's start with this idea of why is waiting so much of a challenge for us? Waiting in our culture, in our day and time in the modern world is something we just do not like to do. I will be the first to confess, I hate waiting. In fact, I'm very, very thankful that we have smartphones now because I can be in a line. The line could be taking a long time. I can whip out my phone and this waiting time period is unbelievably shorter. If you go down to Disney, Disney has become a master at making the wait seem less time-wise than it really is because they are great at distracting you and keeping you from going in other directions with your mind. All of that is because we don't like to wait. Oftentimes, too, when we hear the answer is wait, we oftentimes move into this mindset of, did God even hear me? Does God even care? And so there's always this doubt and this sort of frustration that comes up when the answer is wait. And then I believe there is this fear of the unknown. To have to wait for the answer is to not be able to see what's up ahead, or not to be able to feel like you've got sense of control or a sense of planning that we might want to have that comes from a yes or no. Because if you have a yes, you know how you're going to move forward. If you have a no, you know how you're going to move forward. But waiting, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. So that's another reason why I think it's such a challenge for us to hear the answer wait when it comes from God. But waiting, like I said at the outset, is really something that is good for us. So what do I mean by that? How can God use waiting to make us better people in his kingdom? Well, I've got some ideas. I've got 3 different ideas that I think might really actually help us a whole lot to understand this. The first thing is it helps us to build patience and endurance. So one of the ways that I think waiting actually helps us is that it helps us to build patience and endurance. In James 1, verses 2 through 4, James says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let the steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." Through that scriptures, we kind of learn that waiting sort of teaches us this patience that we need. We all need more patience. And so patience helps us to develop a more mature faith that is stretching us and building up endurance that we need to have. So maybe instead of us actually focusing on what we're waiting for, maybe we need to try to sit there and think, what is God actually trying to prepare me for? What is he building me up for? And sometimes it's just that we need more patience and we need more endurance. The other thing that I think patience does is it actually is preparing our path and our hearts for something greater. In Habakkuk 2, verse 3, we don't really ever go to Habakkuk that much, but in Habakkuk 2 and verse 3, it says, "For the vision is yet for the appointed time. It hurries toward the goal, and it will not fail. Though it delays, wait for it. For it will certainly come. It will not delay long." So sometimes the waiting may be God preparing the circumstances for the answer that he wants to give us. Sometimes that is preparing us to better receive that answer for what he's got planned. God's ways are always perfect. They're always just spot on. He's never made a mistake. In all the history of the world, he's never made a mistake. And by God sitting there saying, there's an appointed time for this answer, and I want you to be prepared for it, or I'm getting all the circumstances just right for this to happen. I need you to wait. That is something that I think any of us would sit back and say, absolutely, I would wait for that. And finally, I think waiting actually deepens our relationship with God. And a good passage for that is Psalms 27:14. It says this: wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Yes, wait for the Lord. Waiting teaches us to depend on God. When we are waiting for God, we are putting and surrendering to Him, saying, I know your way is better. I know that I need to let you do your thing, Lord, and stay out of the way. It helps us to draw closer to Him and to actually lean on His understanding and lean on His strength, not our own. So one of the things that I think we can do from a practical standpoint and how to leverage that is to sit back and make time every single day to pray, and not only just to pray for more things that we're going to wait for or wait for an answer for, but to pray that God actually gives us the strength and the endurance that we need to have to make it through the day. So how do we lean into this idea of waiting and this challenge of waiting? Well, you got to embrace that spirit of surrender that I just mentioned. We have to sit back and say that we're going to follow and we're going to be good with God's timeline. And we're going to make sure that we are letting go of that desire to be in control. There's a level of surrender that comes along with having to wait. And that's really important for us to just let go and let God. There is a poem by Loretta Burns that somebody gave me when I was in college, and it stuck with me all along, and I think it's a great poem, and it really illustrates this point. Here's what the poem says: as children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God because He was my friend. But then instead of leaving Him in peace to work alone, I hung around and tried to help with ways that were my own. At last I snatched them back and cried, how could you be so slow? My child, He said, what could I do? You never did let go. And sometimes in waiting, we have to let go. We have to let God do His thing. We have to let go and just trust in God. And that's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for me, especially. I just know, I'm telling you, I'm that type of person. I don't like to wait. And so to wait for God to sit there and say, I got to trust God's timeline. I got to trust that He knows what He's doing and that He's setting things up. And He always wants the best for me. And whatever that answer is, even if I'm waiting for a no, I'm still waiting for the best answer, because God knows me better than I even know myself. And God knows the circumstances. God sees the future. He's not bound by time like I am. So say that I'm looking for another job. It might be that I'm doing things trying to find somewhere to go with that, but then the answer is wait. I don't know that God's not setting up something better, or God's going to make changes in the current work position and that's going to be better. So during that time of waiting, I could be working on more skills. I could still take action. Waiting doesn't mean that you just stop. Waiting just means it's going to take a little longer to get your answer. The other thing that I think we could do that really helps us during this waiting period is to take stock of the times in the past when you've gotten an answer from God. Was it always right away? Was it times when you had to wait? Look back on those times when you did have to wait. Write them down and see how God was working. When you do that, it will build up your strength and your confidence that God does know what He's doing. God is in control, and that God will be there for us, and His answers are always perfect. So this week, let's make a point to pay attention to the answers that God gives us. We're going to pray hard. We're going to make sure that we're asking God for those things we need. We're going to glorify Him and thank Him for the answered prayers that He does give us. But when we make those petitions to God, if God's answer is wait, I know it's going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging for me. It'll be challenging for you. But if we will sit back and realize that God is doing something extra special for us, maybe He's building something up inside us to make us better children for Him. Maybe He's building us up to make us better for somebody else that we're going to cross paths with. Maybe God's setting up circumstances. Maybe God's making the answer that's going to be so much better than if he had just given you this what you wanted right away. It's going to be a challenge. We like the yeses. Maybe we don't like the no's, but we know that those are better. And when we can understand and we have control and we can plan for what we're going to do. But waiting is a challenge. Waiting is one of those things that's going to make us have to sit back and lose control of the future because we're putting it in the hands of God. We're surrendering to God. So this week, let's get stronger about waiting. Let's be grateful for that answer to our prayers, because I promise you that's going to be something good God's got up around the corner for us. It's going to be God's answers are they're always perfect. They are spot on. And so this week, if you got to wait for something, I know I'm going to have some prayers that I'm going to have to wait for. Let's be okay with it. Let's be thankful for it. Let's be grateful for it. And let's let God know we're more than willing to wait for him, because it'll be great. Yeah, I tell you what, I can't wait for next week's Monday Motivation. How about that? Because you remember, God loves you, and I do too. Bye.